Crypto Astrology Podcast. This is the first episode, and I aim to be putting out these podcasts weekly. So now we are going to be taking a look at the coming week for Bitcoin and Ethereum price. But in the case that you are an intraday trader, then I recommend checking out my website and looking at my trading signals service, which gives very detailed trading signals for Bitcoin and Ethereum and for the markets in general. That's just for intraday traders. But now let's get into the weekly prediction. So first off, this week on Sunday, I see a lot of upward momentum as the moon transits in the sign of Aquarius. But later on Sunday and then on Monday, I see a lot of selling pressure for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And this is because on Sunday morning in Newfoundland, so I use Newfoundland time zone because I am physically located in Newfoundland. So again, on Sunday morning in Newfoundland, that's when Sun enters into the very beginning of Taurus, and Mercury also will be turning direct. So that's why I see a lot of selling pressure later on Sunday after the upward move, and also during the day Monday. However, beginning on Tuesday the 16th, I see a big upswing initiating for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And although I'm not a financial advisor, as an astrologer, I personally would look to enter into long positions around here, because any downward movement, and this is very important, any downward movement that we see from here on out will only be correctional in nature, and we have bypassed the bear at that point, okay? So this is a pretty important week. Although on Thursday evening Newfoundland time, again, a downward correction is likely to initiate due to Sun entering into Aquarius in the Navamsha chart, and there likely being some news about jobs that influences this. I see that by Friday night and throughout Saturday, there is a renewed upward momentum as the new moon happens in trine to Bitcoin's natal Saturn and as Sun trines Ethereum's natal Rahu. So remember, if you are an intraday crypto trader and want detailed trading signals, then check out my website where you'll see my trading signals service. And if you're not a trader, I also offer Vedic astrocartography and a one-question service, and I do offer crypto portfolio reports, but that's specifically for high net worth investors and for fund managers. Okay, so and then on my website you'll also be able to see my books, my yearly predictions and long-term predictions for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now for crypto astro news this week, I want to tell you about the BRC20 Ordinals drama, a little bit about the meme coin Pepe, which is something you may not expect, and also about the news and the FUD regarding when the US government is going to sell its huge Bitcoin holdings. So quite a while ago, I made a Crypto Astro News video about the future of Ordinals on Bitcoin. And most recently, Ordinals was a news topic when Binance Exchange needed to pause Bitcoin withdrawals due to congestion caused by many people minting BRC20 tokens on the Ordinals protocol. And transaction fees on the Bitcoin blockchain were also extremely high that day for the same reason. And there were even people in countries with very high inflation complaining because of the high fees. As for those people, it's more of a life or death situation to be able to acquire Bitcoin any given moment. So this happened on Sunday, May 7th, and on that day, Mercury had just retrograded over the point where Rahu transited when Ordinals was created. And also Mercury was retrograding over the trinal degree to where Mercury transited on that same day that the Ordinals protocol was created. And Mercury was also on Sunday, May 7th, when all this drama ensued, retrograding almost right on Bitcoin's natal Mercury. Okay, so the Bitcoin blockchain congestion on Sunday, May 7th was due to the fact that transiting Mercury was also retrograding towards transiting Rahu in the sky. Okay, so there's a lot of Mercury and Rahu here, but basically that fact creates a lot of stress and intensity, actually, and but the issue that it brought up in this case was that Mercury was basically asking us to take another look at the role of the Ordinals protocol in Bitcoin. Okay, so that's a lot of the times the purpose of Mercury's purpose in retrograde a lot of the time is asking us to take another look at a situation. And so I see that when Mercury actually passes direct over the same place where he was retrograding when the BRC20 related congestion set in on Sunday, May 7th, there will be more consensus and a clear decision made around this. So when Mercury returns to that same degree, but now in forward motion is what I'm speaking about. Because Mercury's degrees, when Mercury returns to a specific degree where he retrograded over or went forward over and then returns backwards and then forwards, that degree is very sensitive and it recalls. And it gives you a new kind of perspective on that same information that he brought up the last time, but in a new developed way. Okay, so but since so there's going to be more of a consensus and a clear decision made regarding Ordinals protocol and BRC20 tokens on Bitcoin. But since Mercury is retrograding very close to Rahu, until then, it's very important that we all maintain a clear and watchful stance, because there is a potential, especially with a combination of Mercury and Rahu, especially for people who are coders, those people are extremely sensitive to that a lot of times. There's a potential for very extreme measures to be taken by some developers, regardless of their viewpoints, regardless of the side they're on. So those developers can potentially take extreme action because of the influence of Rahu and Mercury in the sky. So we all have to maintain a watchful kind of calm, clear view on things to not get caught up in the Mercury-Rahu conjunction energy. Okay, and so the date that I mentioned that we're going to have a clearer view and a better consensus regarding Ordinals is Monday, May 22nd. And on this day, Mercury transits that same zone he was retrograding in when the congestion began. But what's fascinating to me is that the next day, Moon will pass Venus almost exactly on the point where Mars was transiting in Gemini when the token Pepe started its wacky ascent, that meme coin Pepe, which I'm sure you all know. So okay, the meme coin Pepe is on ERC20, but there was and is also a meme coin Pepe that is a BRC20 token, okay? And that Pepe token was part of the reason for the congestion, because people were minting that token amongst others on the Ordinals protocol as BRC20 tokens, okay? So what I see is that it really does seem like the BRC20 version of Pepe, which is not the same as the ERC20 token, will play a part in how we come to understand the role that the Ordinals protocol is going to play in Bitcoin's future. So just a heads up, And then I would also like to mention, it would be worthwhile to note that BRC20 was first introduced on Wednesday, March 8th. And on that date, Moon was actually transiting on Bitcoin's natal moon and Saturn and Lagna. And both of the greatest benefics, Jupiter and Venus, were opposing Moon in Pisces. And so this makes me see that the BRC20 tokens have the potential to greatly benefit Bitcoin by creating another reason for people to transact and use Bitcoin. And in fact, it has already done so already in another way, as the congestion caused Binance to decide to adopt Lightning Network, and Lightning is a layer on top of Bitcoin, which aims to facilitate easy and fast Bitcoin payments. So I see that it would be wise for us to approach these new developments in Bitcoin, like the Ordinals protocol and the resultant BRC20 tokens, minted on it with an open mind. So next, when will the US government sell its remaining 205,515 Bitcoins? So on Wednesday, May 10th, Bitcoin price dropped drastically due to a rumor that the US government was selling its Bitcoin. This happened exactly when Moon entered into Capricorn, into opposition to Mars, who had just entered into Cancer. And I predicted this drop on my Twitter. That's why I recommend you also follow me on Twitter. The US government holds 205,515 Bitcoins, which it had confiscated on separate occasions as like FBI intelligence operations and such, on 3 different operations. So the reason that people thought that they were selling very recently on Wednesday, May 10th, is that people are anticipating the moment that they sell. And this is because on Tuesday, March 14th, the US government did sell had sold a small amount of their holdings, specifically 9,861 Bitcoins. And in the same court filing where they disclosed this, they also said that they were planning to liquidate the remaining entirety of their holdings in 4 more batches over the course of the calendar year, is what it said in the filing. So the day of this filing and the day of the initial liquidation, I want to tell you that Mars had just entered into the sign of Gemini. Now, I also warned us about Mars in Gemini in a previous video. So remember that on May 10th, when people thought, so more recently, May 10th, when people thought the government had sold, and that caused a punctual Bitcoin price drop because everybody else sold because they thought the government was selling. Well, at that moment, Mars had just entered into the next sign of Cancer, and Moon had just entered into opposition to Mars. So Moon is the collective consciousness, and what this shows is that the collective crypto consciousness has aligned with Mars in complete fight mode. But it also shows that this same consciousness is recognizing Mars as a potential trigger for the anticipated government sell-off. Now, this is very valuable information, what I'm about to tell you. What I see is that when Mercury, and you may want to take note of this, when Mercury turns direct in almost exact trine to the place where Mercury retrograded on May 10th, when people thought that the government had sold, but it had not actually sold. At this moment, it's very likely that the US government sells one part of its holdings. This date is Friday, September 15th. And interestingly, this coincides with a date that I mentioned in my yearly Bitcoin predictions book for 2023, in which I saw a significant price loss for BTC. And next, what I see is that when Mars enters into trine with the original point at the very beginning of Gemini, where the government had sold its first 9,861 Bitcoins, as Moon is opposing the place in the sky where Moon was at that moment, this is when a huge reactive upswing in Bitcoin price is highly likely, catalyzed by the warrior-like nature of the mass crypto consciousness. So on this date, Mars is going to be entering into Libra and will conjoin with Ketu, who is like a more extreme and much crazier version of Mars, but who's also like a monk. So he also has a very good side to him too. But on this date is Wednesday, the 4th of October. What's interesting is that in my yearly Bitcoin predictions book for 2023, I see October 4th as being a very big and volatile upswing for Bitcoin price. But at the same time, since Ketu is surprising in nature, and since the day right before, Tuesday, October 3rd, Mars enters into Kendra with the point where everyone thought the government had sold on May 10th, but they hadn't really, it is possible that the US government sells on this day too, so on Tuesday, October 3rd, and that the upswing the following day, Wednesday, October 4th, is a warrior-like reaction by the crypto consciousness, sending the price back up. Okay? Next, there's another date where I see, which is when Sun passes over this same point, accompanied by Mercury. And this date is even more severe. And it happens on Wednesday, October 18th. This is also the date that I mentioned in the 2023 Bitcoin predictions book as being extremely bad for Bitcoin. So with that, I'm going to close for our Crypto Astro News, and please just hit the notifications because these are going to be coming out weekly. This is a critical time, and I think it would be very valuable for you to keep getting these updates from me, both on price and for news events, which obviously affect our industry and the price action. And the other thing is that the weekly price predictions are more for investors. If you're an intraday trader, you may want to look at my trading signal service. And that's all, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much.